Let's get it. Today we are recapping Carolina Regional Championships. This is the Cat 3 race. We are in just outside of Winston-Salem, North Carolina at the Herbalife factory doing the regional track map. Real quick, let's jump into some stats. My FTP for this race was probably closer to like 295, right in there. I'm weighing at 160, so I'm probably a little bit higher than that. I took some time off and did some structured training to get ready for this race, so I was feeling pretty dicey. Race time was 43 minutes. Average speed was 26.5. My normalized power was 264, and you can see there's a fairly good jump between my average power. I felt like I did a pretty good job of staying sheltered and like making sure I was in the draft from everybody, but I did go on a couple like pretty hard flyers that you'll see. And other than that, I feel like we played a really smart race when it comes to the power numbers. Currently, you can see we're coming down this downhill off of the dog leg. That is a new addition for the regional championships only, because we get to do this on a weekend, so we get to add a little bit more to the course. But one important thing I want to note while we're on it is on that little downhill dog leg is, if you go on a solo flyer or any type of attack, you really don't want to do it there, because since it's downhill, the peloton can just kind of like slowly ramp up the speed, and your effort is kind of wasted, especially if you're going on a flyer by yourself. They can just carry so much speed, people can rotate, and like you get caught super fast. But real quick, let's jump into some of our competitors. I think there was around 35, maybe 40 guys for this. Again, it's Cat 3 only. We have the Velocious riders on our left right here in the Miami like teal and orange. We have a Youngblood rider on our right. Far left is a red and black Cycle Dior rider. We have Supra, Benismo, a couple other teams. We, for Newtype, have 5 guys today, including myself. We have Bryce, Jake, Nick, and Jonathan. Our main goal was to get myself or Bryce on the top step, and me and Bryce both wanted to win this race really bad, and so we were kind of like butting heads a little bit, trying to like figure out like how we were going to execute that, because we really wanted to get a team win, but we also wanted the personal win. So it was tough because Bryce's race style is more diesel power, breakaway rider, and mine is a sprint, so we're opposite ends of the spectrum. And there goes a cone right at me. Totally forgot about that. That could have ended my race right at the beginning. Luckily, no one went down, but that was a huge cone that got just ejected straight into us. That's one thing that's kind of annoying about like these big industrial park crits is there's really no way to like mark the course appropriately without having like a ton of cones laid out. So anyways, we all stayed up. It was no big deal. We're going to push ahead in the action. We're just over 11 minutes in, and it's been a crawl these first 10 minutes. Super slow. I'm talking to Jake right now, letting him know, like, we got to make it faster, and just so happens we come out of this downhill, and Bryce is on the front, Nick's on the front, and I'm just like, this is a perfect time for me to kind of slingshot and use that speed from the back of the peloton and launch and kind of get this race going a little bit. As you can see, wide open course. It really just makes it takes away a lot of the technical skills of this course, because it's just so big. Like, you can just sweep these turns and pedal through pretty much everything on this whole course. Check the rear cam. I already have a pretty solid gap, but it's early on, guys. Like, I've got to put in a ton of work right here. I'm hunched over. I'm looking down at my power meter, or my watts on the Garmin, and checking everything, like trying to stay at like the 350 to 450 range. But you can see it's too early on in the race. Check the rear cam. Peloton is coming in fast, and but this was a good kind of kickstart of the race. I was worried there for a minute that we were all just going to ride around for 40 minutes and everyone was going to be super fresh, but you know how it goes. Pull off real quick, rotate through, and perfect counter move by Bryce on the front. He's taken 2 Cycle Dior riders, red and black, off the front, and there's some gaps up in them, guys. Like, this is pretty threatening. And sure enough, some other teams see that threat. Bryce is a pretty well marked rider now, and I would think by now, especially with all the videos that we do, that they all know his riding style, and they're not going to let him, roll off the front early to establish a breakaway or anything like that. So I slot in and get reabsorbed. All right, pushing ahead a little bit. We are 21 minutes in. It's just been one of those like nice and chill like 10 minutes where there's not much going on. We're on the front. We're kind of controlling the pace a little bit. There's not been much activity. It feels like everybody's waiting for us to do something. But sure enough, we have an Oceanic rider on the right, and Bryce counters him and goes up with him on the left. And with me and John on the front, we kind of let a couple other riders take control, and we kind of slot in and make the rest of the field chase that down. So it's been a super long race season for us. This was one of our last crits on the calendar here in the Carolinas. Everyone was super motivated to do well at this one. And we feel like we have a really good team dynamic when it comes to, especially to these local races and stuff, that we have the luxury of every week like getting to practice and race with each other at our local practice crit or road. And so when we come to like the regional race or like maybe even the weekly stuff here in Winston, we feel like we click really well when it comes to attacking, counterattacking, knowing when to go and not go. And I decide right here when we absorb Bryce is perfect time for me to throw a counter move in off the front hard. And they had just set up, and I took a ton of momentum off the group. And what I do, settle in, get in the drops, get as comfy as I can, try and bring my heart rate back down off that hard sprint and get into the threshold mentality. We're going to fast forward this a little bit, but I get a huge gap. Check the rear cam. Like, this was the biggest gap, I want to say, of all the breakaways of the entire day was this one. But unfortunately, I'm out here kind of by myself, and I was really hoping that somebody was going to roll with me on that counter, and just no one ever did. I feel like I was a little unlucky with that at this race, and it was just one of those things, like if I had one or two other guys with me to help take the burden off, we could have stayed away a lot longer, or maybe even established a full breakaway. But was getting some advice from a buddy on the sideline, and he kind of told me to like back it back down a little bit. They're coming fast, and that's exactly what I do here. Check the rear cam. We have a Velocious rider coming by super quick. I don't have enough speed to catch on his wheel, so I'm checking over my shoulder. Sure enough, here comes Bryce and another rider. They're already gapping the field and stuff. It's single file. It's fast. And what I do is I just kind of just like take the apex of the corner and kind of just casually, like nice and easy, make riders go around me and make them make the decision to like, do they keep chasing down Bryce and them, or do they let them go up the road? They choose to come around me and stitch this back up. But there wasn't many, there wasn't a lot of different guys and teams like being active in this. You could really call out like the main people that were trying to, narrate the ride and make it active. Pushing onwards. So that was reabsorbed, and Bryce had been out on the front for like a good while right here, and we slowly 10 minutes later, we start stitching it back up. And all I'm doing back here, you can see John Chin in my rear cam, we're just kind of back here hanging out, trying to recover as much as we can, stay in the draft. But you can see right there, boom, on the left, Bryce and another guy had kind of rolled off the front just a half a lap before this, and you can see it's starting to splinter on the front of the group. Well, I've got Jake and Nick on the front of this thing to kind of control the narrative up there, and if anything like super threatening goes, they're going to jump in and slot in so we have some additional numbers on an additional breakaway or more guys going up the road. But this is probably the fastest part of the course right here, and you really want to just make sure that you're riding smart. And when it gets single file like this, just be patient, because this course, with all the wind and how unsheltered it is, like it bunches up relatively quickly. And since the course is so wide, this is probably the most cones in the entire course right here when you take this right-hander. But you can move up so easily, and it's not super threatening like a technical course, like a four-corner crit where you're going to have curbs and barriers on each side of you. But, I mean, I'm right here at the tail end of this thing, and I'm like looking up the road. I'm like, man, I feel like a little out of position right here. It's just one of those things that you got to be patient. You kind of got to let your teammates do the work as well, and be confident in them to bring it together or stitch it back up. So that's kind of what happens right here. But as this all going on, there's like stuff's getting stitched together. Guys are trying to chase down Bryce, and there's one more rider up there with him, so it's 2 guys. This is kind of like a perfect scenario. It's like let's wear down some of these other teams, some of these other guys that are motivated, like make them do really long pulls on the front, while we get to kind of hang back here in the back and rest a little bit. All right, we're 30 minutes in, guys. Bryce and the other rider are still off the front. So this thing is, they've been kind of dangling off there about like anywhere from like 8 to 5 seconds. So it's like, it's close enough to where people are like, taking the bait a little bit. And I just yell up to Jake and let him know we see some guys up the road right here, like 4 guys trying to bridge, trying to start a chase. There's gaps opening up everywhere. I've got to just, again, be patient, make sure I'm recovering and being as smooth as possible. But it's hard. This was the biggest chase to kind of bring Bryce and them back right here. And guys are just kind of all over the place, man. This course, like, with it being so wide, like, guys are just, you can move up, but then you're like, well, am I still out of position? And then we set up hard. So now that that chase has happened, one other rider has gone off on a flyer. We'll point him out right here to bridge up to Bryce and that second place rider. So they're going to have 3 guys up the road. Pushing ahead, 40 minutes in. We're coming down to the last couple minutes of this thing. The 3 riders up the road with our teammate Bryce have been pretty established, but they're not that far away that the group is like, okay, like the podium is still possible. Like we can potentially bring these guys back. I've got to let my teammates John Chin, Jake, and Nick kind of handle all that up front, and that's what they're doing right now. They've been up front, setting the tempo, making guys come around them, chase this stuff back, and it's worked pretty well. And now I'm kind of just like following Jake around because I'm going to let him be my lead out guy. Me and him connect really well when it comes to these final lap battles and like navigating through traffic. And so I love to be on his wheel and he can take me to the front. And so that's really the goal here. It gets super dicey. We're here on this last lap, guys, and even though there's so much room, it's guys are fresh. A lot of people haven't even like seen the front, and that's just their race, and that's how they're playing it. And I'm losing the wheel a little bit on Jake. I'm trying to navigate through traffic. I'm also trying not to be super aggressive here on a Cat 3 crit. But Bryce and them are still up the road. They're only like 5 to 6 seconds up the road. So like if we do one really big surge, like we could catch them, and it should have been on this downhill. Like if we would have rolled to like 35, 36 miles an hour on that downhill, there was probably a really good chance that we would have reabsorbed Bryce and the leaders coming around like these like double left-handers or like even through the final chicane. We're coming on this backstretch right here. Everything's getting super dicey. I'm trying to navigate. I've lost Jake's wheel. I see an opening right here on the inside. I call it up. The super rider just blitzes it on the outside. The Velocious rider goes. I'm watching this super carefully. We're going fast, guys. I'm too far back. I got to move up a little bit. So I pop it in. You really want to be like first into this chicane, and then you can kind of control your own destiny. So snap one out, going up this uphill drag. This is really my like hardest sprint coming out right now, and I'm just like boxed out. I don't want to go too wide, and perfect. A Velocious rider sees me coming, gives me a free wheel, opens up the gap. I want to come around him on the chicane. I just can't do it. It's a little too tight. And I want to beat him to this corner. I can't do it either. I dive in, get back on the pedals as hard as and fast as I can, and open up a sprint. We're digging to the line. Here comes 4th place. Boom. Guys, bike throw at the line. We'll put up the footage. Yeah, man, that was a spicy one. The last lap are always crazy. Bryce ended up coming home with first. We'll put up the finished footage of that. I ended up eking out that Velocious rider for 4th with the bike throw. Yeah, super fun regionals. The squad did great. It was a good time. It was crazy hot. Glad this one was over. And yeah, guys, appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoy.